The first mistake the kidnappers made was assuming mothers were quiet creatures. On Earth, they saw them pushing strollers in parks, kneeling in sandboxes, or standing at soccer fields with coffee mugs and tired smiles. Soft, small, unarmed. Easy targets. And that was why, on a gray Tuesday morning, the alien vessel slipped over the sleepy suburbs of Denver and took a single 8-year-old boy named Noah Sanders from his front yard. The second mistake was believing no one would come after him. When the neighbors reported it, the authorities assumed it was a missing child case, a runaway, maybe even abduction by some disturbed individual. But the video from a doorbell camera, grainy and shaky as it was, changed everything. A shadow, an angular shape of metal blotting out the sun for 2 seconds. A hiss of light, a thin beam, and then Noah vanished mid-laugh. Gone like smoke. To the Galactic raiders of Carowin, it was just another specimen. They had taken hundreds of children from developing civilizations before, testing how resilient young minds could be reshaped, how docile they became when stripped from their nurturing homes. But they had never taken from Earth. And they had never met Andrea Sanders. Andrea wasn't a soldier. She wasn't an engineer or a spy or an agent of any shadowy organization. She was a mother in every ordinary sense. 36 years old. Wore yoga pants more often than she did jeans. Made her living as a high school English teacher. Read bedtime stories, made dinosaur-shaped pancakes, and occasionally lost her patience when Noah left Legos scattered across the living room floor. But when she saw the footage on her neighbor's phone and heard the words, "an unidentified craft," something inside her switched. It was not a scream or a sob that left her lips first. It was a question, sharp and simple. "Where is my son?" The neighbors shifted uncomfortably. The police offered vague reassurances. The officials set up a tent at the end of the block and began their protocols. But Andrea moved past them all, her face pale, her hair tied back, her eyes darting not at the ground but at the sky as though daring it to open again. By nightfall, reporters crowded the street. Andrea didn't talk to them. She didn't cry for the cameras. She sat on her porch with a blanket over her shoulders, her phone in her hand, replaying the video again and again. Watching the shadow of the ship. Pausing. Zooming. Watching again. It was Noah's laugh that gutted her. The sound cut off mid-note, as though stolen with his body. That laugh was hers. She had heard it first when he was just 2 months old. And she swore that whoever had silenced it would hear something far louder. The following day, the FBI knocked. Then the military. They brought questions, analysts, theories. Andrea listened. But when they hesitated, when they said things like, unknown technology, and out of our jurisdiction, her patience snapped. "You're telling me you saw a ship, you know something took him, and you don't have a plan to bring him back?" she demanded. The men in suits avoided her eyes. The officer in uniform swallowed and said, "Ma'am, this is bigger than anything we've ever faced. We'll need time." Andrea stood in her living room, the sun cutting through blinds, highlighting the dust motes that had never mattered until now. She had time once, when Noah was colicky and she thought mornings would last forever. She had time when she thought school projects and scraped knees were the hardest battles she'd fight. But she did not have time now. Not while her son was out there, alone in the cold dark, surrounded by whatever had stolen him. That night Andrea drove. Not to the police. Not to the base. To the one place she thought ridiculous until desperation made it logical, her brother's garage. Mike Sanders was not a normal brother. He was the kind who read conspiracy forums for fun, tinkered with homemade radio arrays, and swore the government was hiding evidence of extraterrestrials. Most families rolled their eyes at such people. Andrea once had too. But when she pulled into his cluttered driveway, and he opened the door with grease on his hands, she didn't waste a second. "They took Noah," she said. Mike blinked. "Who?" "Aliens." Silence. A wrench clattered to the floor. Then his face changed, not mocking, not skeptical. Serious. Dead serious. "Show me." She handed him the video. He watched once. Twice. 3 times. Then he turned without a word, ushering her into his garage. It smelled of solder and machine oil. Antennas leaned against one wall. A screen flickered with unread frequencies. "I knew it," he muttered. "I knew they'd come eventually." "But Noah." He stopped. Looked at her. "You're sure you want to do this? If we start digging, we'll attract attention." "Good," Andrea said, her voice iron. "I want their attention." Mike nodded. "Then let's get to work." In the days that followed, Andrea's world inverted. She taught her classes during the day, face composed, voice steady, while her students stared at her with pity, whispering about the missing boy. By night, she sat with Mike, combing through radio bursts and analyzing satellite feeds. He muttered about patterns in the noise, about energy spikes that didn't match any Earth origin signal. Andrea didn't understand all of it. She didn't need to. What she understood was that if there was a trail, she would follow it. If there was a wall, she would climb it. One evening, Mike froze at his console. "There," he said, pointing at a jagged line of data. "That's not natural. It's a transmission. And it's not ours." Andrea leaned in. "Can you track it?" He swallowed. "Not alone. But I know people." The word people made Andrea pause. Mike's people were a mix of online eccentrics and old contacts from college labs. But at this point, Andrea didn't care. If someone had a thread, she'd pull it. And so began the calls. The coded emails. The midnight meetings in diners with individuals who carried laptops and spoke in acronyms. Some laughed at them. Some leaned in with interest. And a few, just a few, gave coordinates. Andrea was exhausted, but every shred of fatigue burned away each time she saw Noah's empty bed, the stuffed bear on his pillow, the drawings taped to the refrigerator. It was a week later when Mike showed her the satellite photos. A glint in low orbit. Too angular to be debris. Too stationary to be a rock. Andrea stared at it. "That's them." Mike nodded. "Could be. But we don't know how to reach them." Andrea's mouth tightened. "Then we learn." The unusual part wasn't that a mother was willing to go this far. Any mother would. The unusual part was that Andrea wasn't afraid. Not anymore. She carried her grief like armor. She spoke with a steadiness that unnerved even the seasoned UFO hunters around Mike. Because Andrea knew something the aliens didn't. They thought they had stolen a child from a defenseless world. They thought humanity would sit and weep and wonder. But humanity had always been underestimated. And mothers? Mothers were never alone. By the time the military announced they were investigating potential extraterrestrial involvement, Andrea already had a plan forming. She knew she would need transport, equipment, and allies. She didn't have them yet, but she would. And the aliens, wherever they were, would soon learn the truth. They hadn't stolen a child. They had declared war on a mother. The aliens thought distance would protect them. They thought light years and silence would drown out any echo of a mother's voice. But Andrea Sanders was already learning to shout into the void, and the void was starting to answer. The signal Mike uncovered wasn't random. It pulsed at intervals too clean, too deliberate. Andrea listened to it one night on headphones in his garage, expecting alien language, guttural or metallic. Instead, she heard a kind of harmonic hum. Almost a lullaby, steady and low, like something designed to soothe. Her stomach clenched. "They're playing it for the kids," she whispered. Mike's face tightened. "Conditioning." Andrea slammed the headphones down. "No. Manipulating." Her voice dropped. "They think they can overwrite me." Her determination hardened. If the aliens were already trying to reprogram Noah, time was thinner than she had imagined. They couldn't wait for bureaucrats, or for governments still debating whether it was first contact or anomalous interference. Her son was being rewritten, and she would not allow it. But what did a mother and a garage tinkerer have against an interstellar species? The first complication answered itself in the form of 3 black SUVs pulling into Mike's driveway the next morning. Andrea barely had time to hide the files before men in tactical gear stepped out. Government, clearly. Not FBI this time. Too quiet, too sharp. They entered without asking, flashing credentials that might as well have been blank. Mrs. Sanders, the leader said, his face impassive. You need to come with us. Andrea stood her ground. Where's my son? The man's jaw flexed. We're working on it. But we can't have you interfering with classified investigations. Mike bristled. Interfering? We're the only ones actually getting results. We track the damn signal, while you people are still arguing over who funds the committee. That was the wrong thing to say. Two men grabbed him by the arms. Andrea felt the blood rush to her face. Stop! She barked, with a command that surprised even herself. The men froze, glancing at their leader. The leader's eyes narrowed at her. You're not in control here, Mrs. Sanders. Andrea took a step forward, close enough that he saw the dark circles under her eyes, the tremble in her hands that wasn't fear but rage held on a leash. You're wrong. I am the only one in control. Because if you think you can stop me from getting my son back, you haven't been paying attention. Now let go of my brother. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, perhaps recognizing that dragging a grieving mother into custody might become a public relations disaster, the leader signaled his men to release Mike. This is bigger than you, he said flatly. You'll get yourself killed. Andrea's lips curled. Good. Then I'll haunt them too. They left after searching the garage and confiscating a few drives, but not before issuing a warning: stand down or face consequences. Andrea sat heavily on a stool after they were gone, her body shaking from adrenaline. Mike rubbed his wrists. You know they're going to keep watching us, right? Good, Andrea said again. Let them watch. Because when we move, they won't see it coming. That night, Andrea made her first unconventional leap. She reached out not to scientists, not to officials, but to other mothers. Through quiet online groups, parent forums, encrypted chats Mike set up. She didn't say, aliens. She didn't say, spaceship. She said only the truth. They took my child. I'm going to get him back. Who's with me? At first, replies trickled in with condolences, prayers, and disbelief. But then names. Stories. A woman in Brazil whose daughter vanished while playing near the coast. A father in Nigeria who swore his twins disappeared under a falling light. A couple in rural Mongolia who never spoke publicly for fear of ridicule. It wasn't just Noah. It had never been just Noah. Andrea made calls late into the night. She listened to voices crack with grief, fury, and loneliness. And when she told them she was going to fight back, they didn't laugh. They asked how? By the end of the week, she had something no government agency had: a network of parents united not by politics or protocol, but by love sharpened into a weapon. But another complication arose. One of the parents, an engineer named Fatima in Istanbul, sent Andrea schematics she claimed were based on fragments of alien tech her son had left behind. It's not complete, Fatima wrote in her accented English over video call, her eyes blazing. But if your brother is half as good as you say, he can build it. Think of it as a key. Mike nearly fell out of his chair studying the blueprints. This isn't like anything I've seen. But yeah? Maybe. If I can find the parts. Andrea touched the screen. Do it. Whatever it takes. As they gathered components, through favors, late-night drives to abandoned scrapyards, and whispered trades with shady suppliers, Andrea found herself learning things she never expected. How to weld. How to read oscillation graphs. How to hold a soldering iron steady despite trembling hands. It was absurd. A mother building alien technology in her brother's garage. But each night she whispered to herself the same mantra: absurd is better than helpless. Meanwhile, Noah was not sleeping. Far away, aboard a Caruan vessel that smelled of antiseptic metal, he lay on a platform, eyes wide as alien voices sang their lullaby. But Noah was Andrea's son. And when they tried to pour images into his mind, strange shapes, false comforts, he resisted. He thought of pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. He thought of his mom's voice reading bedtime stories. He thought of the way she always said, "Noah, you're stronger than you think." And he believed her. The aliens grew frustrated. Their conditioning worked on other species. But this human child's stubbornness was like a wall. One of the Karian technicians hissed at another. "The mother-unit bond is interfering. It is resilient." Back on Earth, Andrea didn't know the specifics. But she felt it, in the way mothers do. A tug in her chest. A certainty, Noah was still himself. By the second week, Mike had finished assembling what Fatima called the key. It looked like a coil of metal and crystal, humming with faint energy, no bigger than a backpack. "This," Mike explained, "is supposed to piggyback on their signal. If it works, it'll open a two-way channel." Andrea didn't hesitate. "Then let's call them." The first attempt nearly fried their equipment. The garage filled with a shriek of static, then silence. On the second attempt, the lights flickered. On the third, Andrea heard it, faint, muffled, but unmistakable. "Noah?" Her son's voice. Small. Afraid. "Mom?" Andrea collapsed against the table, tears blurring her vision. "I'm here, baby. I'm coming." Then the line went dead. Mike's face was pale. "They cut it. They know we're here now." Andrea wiped her tears, her jaw set. "Good. Let them know. Let them be afraid." But the connection came with a cost. That night, Andrea noticed a drone hovering outside her window. Not military. Sleeker. Colder. Watching. The Karian had realized something dangerous. This human mother was not broken. She was building. She was reaching. And she had found her child across the stars. They would have to move faster now. Both sides knew it. Andrea didn't sleep. She packed bags, secured the device, and sent encrypted messages to the parents around the world. Her voice was steady as she recorded the final one. "They think we're helpless. They think they can erase our children. But they forgot something. We don't stop. We don't break. And we don't fight alone." The war for her son had begun. And the aliens had no idea what kind of storm they had unleashed. The aliens had expected Earth to be fractured, disorganized, too primitive to notice their thefts. They never expected resistance, not from governments, not from armies, and certainly not from one human mother. Yet now, somewhere deep in their command circuits, alarms were beginning to pulse. Andrea Sanders had made contact. And worse, her bond with the child was interfering with their conditioning protocols. Andrea didn't care what they expected. All she cared about was Noah's voice, faint through the static. Those two words, "Mom?" had rewritten her world. Now there was no turning back. Mike's garage became a command center. Laptops hummed, antenna arrays bristled, and mothers and fathers from across the world sent data in encrypted bursts. They weren't scientists or soldiers, but they were resourceful, relentless, and furious. Each piece of information, each fragment of signal, built a clearer picture of the Karian ship's location. One night, after 40 straight hours awake, Mike slapped his hand on the table. "Got it. Orbital trajectory. They're hiding just beyond geosynchronous range. That's why the military satellites missed them. They're slipping behind the planet's rotation." Andrea leaned over his shoulder, staring at the glowing arc on the screen. A dot circled Earth like a vulture. Her chest burned. That's them. But knowing was one thing. Reaching them was another. No commercial rocket would take her. The military would never let a civilian mother near their launch systems. She needed another way up. That way came in the form of a quiet voice on a late-night call. A woman named Carla, whose daughter had been taken in Argentina, whispered into Andrea's earbud. "There's a private launch in Florida. Billionaire's vanity project. Test flight in 3 weeks. If we can redirect it, we can ride." Mike stared at the specs Carla sent through. "Redirect it? You mean hijack it?" Andrea's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Then we hijack it." It was insane. Impossible. Suicidal. But so was sitting still while Noah was erased. The days that followed blurred into motion. Andrea gathered a small team: parents, hackers, technicians. They met in safe houses, spoke in hushed tones, moved like shadows. Andrea, who had once packed lunchboxes and graded essays, now found herself sketching infiltration routes and memorizing guard rotations. On the night of the launch, the Florida air was thick and humid. The rocket gleamed under floodlights, a needle aimed at the stars. Guards patrolled. Engineers bustled. No one noticed the minivan parked half a mile away, where Andrea adjusted her backpack straps and looked at her brother. "You don't have to come," she whispered. Mike snorted. "You think I'm letting you steal a spaceship without me? Not a chance." She hugged him, quick and fierce. "Then let's bring him home." They moved like ghosts. A hacked keycard here, a distraction there. The other parents played their parts, spilled coffee, pulled alarms, jammed cameras. By the time the countdown reached T-30 minutes, Andrea and Mike were inside the crew capsule, their stolen badges blinking green against scanners. The seats were meant for test pilots. They strapped in anyway, hearts pounding. Andrea gripped the alien key they had built, its coils thrumming faintly in her hands. "Once we're up there," Mike said, his voice tight, "we only get one shot at this." Andrea nodded. "Then we make it count." The engines roared. The world shook. And as Florida dropped away beneath them, Andrea's breath caught. She was leaving Earth, not as an astronaut, not as an explorer, but as a mother chasing her stolen child. The ascent was brutal. Fire, pressure, noise. But then silence. The black expanse of space yawned beyond the capsule window, scattered with stars. Earth hung behind them, vast and blue. Andrea pressed the key against the console. It hummed, then flared, releasing a pulse of light invisible to human eyes but impossible for the Carowin to ignore. Almost immediately, something shifted in the dark. A shadow moved against the stars. A vessel revealed itself, angular and alien, its surface rippling with sickly green light. Andrea's chest tightened. "That's them." The Carowin ship responded faster than she imagined. A beam lanced out, not to destroy but to capture, locking onto the capsule and dragging it toward an open bay. The capsule shuddered, systems failing, alarms shrieking. Mike's knuckles went white. "They're pulling us in." Andrea's voice was steady. "Good. Saves us the trouble of knocking." The capsule clanged against the bay floor, hissing with depressurization. The hatch was ripped open by claw-like appendages. Figures loomed, tall, insected, with chitinous armor and multifaceted eyes glowing faintly. The Carowin. Andrea unbuckled, rose to her feet, and met them head-on. For a moment, silence hung. The aliens clicked in their own tongue, their mandibles twitching. Then one hissed in broken translation. "Mother Unit. You should not be here." Andrea's glare could have cut steel. "Give me my son." The Carowin tilted its head, confused by her audacity. "He is being perfected. Purged of weakness." Andrea stepped forward, unflinching though claws hovered inches from her face. "He is mine. And I am not weak." Mike tugged at her sleeve, whispering, Maybe don't provoke the giant bugs?" But Andrea didn't back down. "Take me to him. Now." For reasons they didn't understand, perhaps curiosity, perhaps arrogance, the Carowin complied. 2 guards flanked them, leading through corridors of pulsing light and alien glyphs. Andrea memorized every step, every turn. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Finally, they entered a chamber glowing with strange machinery. And there he was. Noah. Strapped to a platform, wires woven around his temples, eyes glassy. His small body twitched as waves of alien hum rippled through the room. Andrea's heart nearly broke. She surged forward, but the guards blocked her path. "Noah!" she cried. His eyes flickered, dazed. Then focus sharpened. "Mom?" Andrea's voice cracked. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." The Carowin technician hissed disapproval. "The bond persists. Terminate." Claws rose. Andrea moved without thought, swinging the key like a club. It slammed into the alien's arm, discharging a crackle of stolen energy. The Karen screeched, collapsing in spasms. Mike yelled, "Guess it works as a weapon too!" He grabbed a loose pipe and swung wildly at the other guard. Chaos erupted. Alarms blared. Andrea ripped the restraints from Noah's wrists, pulling him into her arms. His body was weak, trembling, but his arms clung to her neck with ferocity. "I knew you'd come," he whispered. Tears streaked her face as she kissed his hair. "Always!" But their escape was far from over. More Carowinds stormed the chamber, weapons glowing. Andrea tightened her grip on Noah, adrenaline turning her bones to steel. Mike shouted, "We can't fight them all!" Andrea raised the humming key, her voice a snarl. "Then we don't fight. We run." She slammed the device into the floor. It discharged a pulse so bright the chamber flooded with white light. The Carowinds screeched, staggering, their compound eyes blinded. Andrea sprinted through the chaos, Noah clinging to her, Mike at her side. Corridors twisted, alarms wailed, but Andrea moved like a predator. Every cell in her body screamed a single truth: get her son out. They reached an airlock. Beyond it, the black of space. Their capsule was gone, consumed by the ship. Mike cursed. "We're trapped!" Andrea's eyes blazed. "No. We're not!" She turned to Noah, brushing hair from his face. "Listen, baby. We're going to jump, okay? Just like in the pool. You trust me?" His eyes, wide and terrified, searched hers. And then he nodded. "I trust you." Andrea hit the release. The doors yawned open, sucking air, alarms shrieking. The void gaped before them. Mike stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "Andrea! There's no suit, no plan." "There's always a plan," she said fiercely. "I didn't come this far to stop now." Behind them, Carowin claws scraped closer. Andrea wrapped her son in her arms, the key clutched tight in one hand. "On 3, she said. 1, 2, and then she leapt into the stars. Falling through space should have been the end. The void should have swallowed them, cold and merciless. Yet Andrea Sanders didn't fall screaming. She fell with her eyes wide, her arms tight around Noah, her grip firm on the alien key. Because she hadn't leapt in despair, she had leapt with intent. The device sparked in her hand, reacting to the raw vacuum, its coils whining as if alive. Mike's voice shrieked through the calm beat still in her ear. "Andrea, you're insane! There's no air, no tether, no..." But the rest of his words drowned in the pulse of light that erupted from the device. Space warped. Andrea gasped as, instead of the freezing silence of death, a shimmer unfolded around her, a bubble, faint and translucent, glowing with green-blue energy. She and Noah floated inside, oxygen filling their lungs, the cold kept at bay. Andrea laughed, wild and defiant, her voice echoing in the impossible bubble. "You see, baby? I told you there's always a plan." Noah clung to her, shivering but alive. "Mom, what is this?" She pressed her forehead to his. "It's home, Noah. It's me. And it's you. That bond they couldn't break? It's stronger than their machines. This thing," she lifted the humming device, "was built to open doors. They forgot mothers can turn keys into weapons." Behind them, the Carowin vessel loomed, massive and furious. Lights crawled across its hull, weapons pivoting toward their glowing sphere. Andrea felt the pressure, the storm of energy building. They would fire soon, and one bubble, no matter how miraculous, wouldn't withstand the barrage. Then another voice crackled in her ear. "Mike. Sis. You're not gonna believe this, but your little stunt fried half their systems. Alarms everywhere. They're stumbling." Andrea's gaze hardened. "Then we finish it." She closed her eyes, holding Noah tighter. Every cell of her being screamed with instinct. Protect. Fight. Endure. And the key responded, glowing brighter, humming like a heartbeat. The bubble expanded, tendrils of light lashing outward toward the Carowin ship. Noah gasped. "Mom, you're hurting them!" Andrea opened her eyes, blazing. "Good. They should learn what it feels like when you threaten someone's child." The Carowin fired. Beams of energy slammed into the bubble, but instead of piercing, they bent, refracted, curled back toward the ship itself. Explosions flared across its hull, ripping open jagged wounds. For the first time in their empire's history, the Carowin felt fear. Their prey had turned their own power against them, not with weapons of war, not with fleets or soldiers, but with the sheer ferocity of a mother who would not yield. Andrea roared as the bubble pulsed, a primal cry that wasn't just hers. It carried every parent's fury from Earth, every tear, every scream swallowed into silence. Across encrypted channels, mothers and fathers listening in from the ground wept as they heard it. They knew. They understood. The Carowin ship cracked apart, its systems overloading, its hull folding inward like paper. Shards of alien metal spun into the void, glowing before fading into nothing. Andrea floated in silence, chest heaving, her son's heartbeat pounding against her own. For a long, weightless moment, it was just them and the stars. Then Mike's voice, choked with disbelief. "Andrea, you did it! You actually, holy hell, you did it!" Her laugh was half sob, half triumph. "No. We did it. Noah and me." The bubble drifted toward debris. Oxygen levels blinked warning signs on the device, its glow flickering. Andrea knew it wouldn't hold forever. "Mike," she said, steadying her breath, "tell me you've got a way to pick us up." There was a pause, then his nervous chuckle. "About that. I might have stolen a shuttle while everything was exploding. Don't ask how. Look out for the ugliest piece of junk you've ever seen coming around the bend." Andrea turned, and sure enough, a battered shuttle sputtered into view, its thrusters coughing fire. She smiled, tears still glistening. "That's my brother." The shuttle locked onto them with a docking claw, pulling them inside. The bubble collapsed, vanishing as if it had never been. Andrea collapsed into the shuttle bay floor, Noah in her arms. For the first time in weeks, she breathed without fear. Her son was warm. Alive. Whispering into her chest. "You came for me." Andrea kissed his hair. "Always. No matter where, no matter how far. Always." Mike staggered in from the cockpit, pale and shaking. "Remind me never to doubt you again, sis." Andrea managed a tired smile. "I told you. Never underestimate a mother." The shuttle limped back toward Earth, its systems barely holding. As they pierced atmosphere, flames licked the windows, turbulence shaking the hull. But Andrea held Noah steady, whispering reassurances, her voice unwavering. When they broke through the clouds, the world below was waiting. The governments, the media, the watchers in black SUVs. They had tracked every signal, seen every burst of alien static, watched the Carowin ship vanish from their instruments. And now, as the battered shuttle descended, they gathered in stunned silence. The ramp opened. Andrea stepped out, Noah clinging to her side. Her hair was matted, her clothes scorched, her eyes ringed with exhaustion. But she stood tall. And the crowd, soldiers, reporters, officials, did not cheer. They did not shout. They simply stared, because they understood they were looking at something larger than victory. They were looking at a truth the galaxy would never forget, that humans fight differently. Not with technology alone, not with strategy alone, but with bonds unbreakable even across the stars. Reporters surged forward with questions. Cameras flashed. Officials tried to push microphones at her. Andrea silenced them with a single raised hand. "I'm not here for your headlines," she said, her voice raw but resolute. "I just want to say one thing. To anyone out there who thinks Earth is easy prey, who thinks they can take from us and erase us." She glanced at Noah, squeezing his hand. "We don't fight alone. We don't give up. And we don't forget." Her words echoed across networks, bouncing from city to city, spilling across borders. Parents held their children tighter that night. Leaders whispered in fearful tones about what one mother had done to a starship. And somewhere, scattered remnants of the Karian fleet transmitted desperate warnings to their brethren. Do not touch Earth. Do not touch the children. Andrea went home. Not to parades, not to medals, but to the quiet of her house. To Noah's room, where toys still lay scattered, where his bed was still unmade. She tucked him in, brushed his hair back, and sat beside him until his breathing slowed, steady and safe. Only then did she allow herself to cry, not in rage, not in fear, but in relief. The galaxy would remember the mother who brought down a ship with nothing but her will. But Andrea didn't care about the galaxy. She cared about the boy asleep under her roof. The next morning, she made pancakes. Dinosaur-shaped. Burned at the edges, messy, imperfect. Noah laughed when he saw them, the same laugh she'd heard stolen on that grainy video. Andrea froze for a moment, listening to it. Then she smiled. The war wasn't over. Somewhere out there, other Karian ships drifted, watching, waiting. But Earth had seen what one parent could do. And the Karian had seen it too. Next time, humanity wouldn't wait to be asked. Andrea stacked the pancakes, slid the plate in front of Noah, and sat across from him. For the first time in weeks, her shoulders eased. Because they had taken her child. And they had learned the one lesson no alien in the galaxy would ever forget. You don't mess with a mother.